All right, folks, welcome back to the Build It podcast. Season finale. It's going to be a cliffhanger. It's not, because the best we could do was Midwest Premier League Commissioner Andy Hayes. Andrew, welcome aboard.
Nick, thanks for that sublime introduction. I appreciate it.
No worries. It's going to be like the Unit or the Shield or one of those, but really, really disappointing instead. Maybe be the last episode of the Call of Duty. No, Line of Duty. Call of Duty is something completely different. This is how professional I am, you see? Already getting it.
You did your research. This is great.
Oh, mate. Tell you. John Hall, Chief Custodian, owner, proprietor, whatever, florist of DeKalb County United. Hi, John.
Wow, they just keep getting better. I can't tell you, I really enjoyed this with you, Nick. I mean, and we learn a lot, and it's hard to believe the season 2 already.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let me also say I'm really excited to free up a little additional time in my week, just as the season's approaching. But I'm telling you what, not think of 10 better guests than Andy Hayes to listen to. My man.
Well, he's someone's man.
I can think of 9.
Yeah.
9, but not 10.
Yeah. He's definitely in my top 17 of guests we've had ever.
Oh,
definitely.
Man. You know how to make a guy blush, Nick.
We're true. We do. So, John, I don't know whether you're here in your guise as DeKalb or Midwest Premier League, but Andy is definitely here in his guise as Midwest Premier League Commissioner, Enfant Terrible, etc., etc. For those who didn't know, the Midwest Premier League had their AGM this last Saturday just passed, as of time of recording, basically at the start of March. Very conveniently located for me, if no one else. I thank you both for that. 10 minutes from my house. Can't think of a better location. I suggest we do that every year. But Andy, I wanted to get you on basically to see how you feel it went, your thoughts about league admin as a whole, not just Midwesty, but just, whether or not you do all this shit again, and hopes and dreams for the future, both Midwest and Indiana Old Boys, I guess. But let's start with a brief recap. Your takeaways from the AGM.
Right off the surface there, the best thing for me was getting to meet a lot of these folks, including board members, face to face. I'm sure you guys have talked and waxed poetic about it before here, Nick. That was the first opportunity we've had as a league board of directors and membership or management group, whatever the hell you want to call it, to actually sit face to face and see each other. I've never, John and I have had the opportunity to kind of sit down, have a beer and talk. But I think outside of Ante, Alankar, no one else I really talked to or sat with or met in person. And then to bring in, I think we had somewhere around 21 clubs out of our 26 in the membership clubs there in person. We had about 55 people, something like that. It's pretty incredible. I sat on another league's AGM the week before virtually, and which it helped with their delivery method. But for us, in person was the only way to go. And it was, that was the biggest takeaway, is getting all the people there energized and talking about soccer was fantastic. It was definitely worth the drive up and back to Chicago.
Always worth the drive up to Chicago, you know that. What was the thinking about making it in person rather than virtual?
Active participation. Above anything else, it showed that we genuinely listened to the membership from 2021 as we wrapped up the season. It showed that we genuinely cared about making the league product better for clubs, and really, it really, to me, it reiterated and reemphasized our goal of making everybody better through communication and collaboration. I mean, we've talked about it. I've been on this pod to talk about it before. I've heard John preach it. Nick, you've talked about it. We've all kind of shot the shit about it. The biggest thing to me was we all care. We all run our clubs. We're all involved at the club level, and we want to see how we can pull those ideas out and make everybody better. Sustainability is the key. We obviously all want that to happen, but the only way we do that is if we all work together and figure out how to be better at it.
John, your takeaways from the process?
Yeah, I don't echo a lot of the same thoughts. I think part of the other thing to add, he said, which is all true. The other thing is it really gives us an opportunity to gauge a little bit of the commitment. Where do the clubs actually prioritize the Midwest Premier in their programming? We steal that term from Minneapolis City, of course. But I think that was it. I think we had some good conversation. I think there's always an opportunity to improve, but based on what we had and the geography, and we had clubs coming 5-6 hours away to get a hotel and come and be part of it. And I'll add also that we, by the end of the weekend, we had sort of a AGM survey out once again to hear from the clubs. What did they not like? What can we do differently? So, I think the unintended theme to reflect on it was, what do you guys want? And, I think every topic, it was back to them. It wasn't a board. In most cases, we weren't telling them rules and some of the ops manual items we talked about. I mean, those are decided. Everything can be amended in the future, but we want to hear what you guys want, and we direction that the clubs want to go in. So that was important. And I think if nothing, in person or virtual, we did a virtual AGM a year ago when we had to, and I think we felt it was time. It's been almost 2.5 years since the league sort of really started at the end of 9. It's pretty incredible what we've been able with the technology at our disposal. So overall, I thought it was good, and I always room for improvement.
Let's talk about that then, the improvement side of things. What would you change for 2023 AGM? Either of you. Andy first.
Me first. This is something we spent some time talking about while it was fresh in our heads on Saturday. But to me, Nick, I think the biggest thing we would change is making sure we're having an opportunity to kind of really work through what works for clubs in terms of, doing memberships or doing sponsors. Dive in deeper, I think, into those details, because that we asked some good high level questions as far as what's your reliance upon, sponsorships or partners, whatever, the club partners, and is that helping shift your data, your basically day-to-day operations, and oversee, are you lost one big sponsor, are you effed? I'm cleaning myself up for you guys. Saturday was not the case. If you guys were both there. But to me, getting the clubs to kind of take more ownership or interest in, and some of them did a great job of driving some conversations, but making sure everyone has an opportunity to at least understand this is the forum to ask questions of people who are like you or not like you, doing it in a market like yours or not. These are the ways. This is the way we can kind of help focus on sustainability and making sure your club's here year after year. That was a big one for me. We talked a little bit about a couple things, but we didn't really dive into it. John?
Yeah, no, I think that's true. I think format wise, one of the things that or to add on, aside from being due to injury, my fitness was down. Having the chance to really walk around and talk to people without taking half-hour breaks just lengthens the meeting. I think having that optional post-meeting social time, whether we, a lot of clubs went to the Chicago Fire match. Well, maybe we could all have a 2-hour house. Just maybe we start at lunchtime and have lunch, and then we go somewhere and have dinner afterwards. Becomes a little bit more loose, and I know from our perspective, Andy, we unintentionally very focused trying to meeting moving, and like we were focused on running a meeting that I know I didn't get out and network within the room as I had hoped. But fortunately, with technology, I can call any of these club members up and rattle their cage anytime I want if needed to share best practices and such. So
right.
I think we can definitely tweak. And again, we have survey clubs and we'll get their feedback, and we use their feedback to drive what 2023 looks like.
Were there any surprises either during the meeting or in the whatever feedback you've got so far? Anything that you weren't expecting?
I'll take
Nothing.
that one, Andy.
Yeah, go ahead, John. It may...
From a survey, the challenges, some of the initial feedback is 3 different directions. So it's going to be hard to please everyone. I don't intend to make it 100% perfect AGM for everybody, but if we continue to pound the theme, I think that's good. Nothing really jumped out as a surprise. Really knew what to expect, I don't think. And honestly, we planned an AGM fully remotely, and that's hard to do as well. The agenda, we talked through the talking points a little bit, but I think the overall, we just have to kind of use the feedback to mold it the best we can moving forward. But nothing really jumped out as a surprise.
Yeah, I guess I've not seen some of the feedback there. I can imagine what it could be.
Potty mouth.
Yeah, I know it. I need a bar of soap there every time I start ready to talk. Get ready to talk. I thought. I mean, all in all, I thought nothing really surprised me. It was good to see some folks that either we have never seen or haven't seen in a long time. But yeah, I'm interested to see what that feedback is. To John's point, we can't please everybody. There's no sense in trying, quite honestly. And I know I'm a little little frank and direct sometimes with clubs, but at the same time, to John's point about trying to make the meeting go, it was the virtual platform allows you to kind of steamroll ahead, and folks aren't going to be interacting. You can't read the room, so to speak, because whether they have cameras on or not. Here, you could see if something was bothering somebody and maybe probe or ask a question or defer to somebody who may be an expert in a certain topic, be it sponsorships or be it developing memberships. And we got into a good tangent about a couple clubs brought some of those things up, how they did it, what they were looking for, what was important to them, how to enhance the ask to get community engagement. Stuff like that just never would have happened in a virtual setting. So that was a positive surprise to see some of the piggybacking off ideas from some clubs who quite frankly may never play each other based on where they're located, right? So that's pretty awesome.
It's kind of the ethos of the league, though, isn't it? It doesn't matter where you are. You're just trying to, like we always say, we want to get 30 clubs between us and our current nearest rival, whether that's Detroit and Lansing or us and Rockford, right? It doesn't matter. What were your hopes coming into it about the discourse that people were going to have? Were you expecting not raised voices, right? But were you expecting a franker exchange or more resistance to things or more free thinking, or were you pleasantly surprised by? I'm answering the question for you, but were you pleasantly surprised by like everyone's affability?
Everyone's affability was a surprise, a pleasant surprise. It's not a big one, but I was definitely expecting a little more bitching about certain things, especially when we talk about rules. The comment I made is about, sorry, I'm gonna say, like I said it Saturday, we don't want a bag of dicks, or dick bags or assholes out and about representing our clubs and our league. That's just not, you got enough of that on the board. We don't need enough of that, all the clubs doing it, right? But I think, so we had some of those conversations, and that's hard for some folks to kind of appreciate where I'm coming from. I'm very disconnected from, I'm old, haven't played in a while, won't play ever again. But some of those things I look at more for how are you truly impacting your community positively by what you're representing. And none of us on this call here, none of the ones in the club I run as well, want to be around a bunch of dick bags, quite frankly. So that's the Terre Haute, Indiana version of how I think. But
they say that a good interviewer should hold his or her silence and let the guests talk, but bollocks for that. My biggest takeaway was that there were an awful lot of clubs, some with some storied history and some just starting out, that were focused on the player pathway, which is great, right? Crack on. That's part of why we're here. We're going to have feeder leagues and hopefully we're going to feed up. Fantastic. But there seemed to be, from those same parties, there seemed to be little, if any, interest in growing the sport. They were focused on the player pool, not the supporter pool.
And it's a great point. I think that's honestly what's great about this league is we have such, kind of differing approaches to how to build a club or team. And you have that club versus team mentality sometimes. And we're in the same footprint and we compete with each other. And quite honestly, we're relatively competitive, top to bottom of the league, both sides of the table last year, both sides conferences for the most part. There were some exceptions. As we're gearing up towards 22, we have some new clubs coming in that have either played or not. So it'll be interesting to see what the disparity level is in terms of play. But I think part of what I guess I don't want to lose sight of as a league and as a diverse membership of our clubs is the focus on the community and the club component. The building a club and building a reason to be a part of or piece of the community you're in, I think is absolutely, I'd say 9 out of 10 clubs need that. They need that connection. They need that connectivity. They need that ability to kind of resonate and be relevant year round. They don't have 100 years of history, and that's most of us don't, and that's okay. But that is interesting to see the divergent kind of viewpoints of player development trophies and club development community.
And maybe it's a talking point for a future AGM. Who knows? I'm just throwing it out there.
And to your point, Nick, and you mentioned it on Saturday, more community activity. That's great. And it's a great question. How many clubs would like to talk more about that? Because it's not all of them, and that's the hard part. Any topic, I'll pick on Ante, my good friend. You know, Ante is concerned with that stuff, right? He runs his club the way he runs his club. It doesn't pertain to him. There's always going to be somebody's not doing sponsor with him. And I think we just have to try to canvass the masses to, hey, 80% of our clubs would benefit this. These are the things we're going to talk about and share, and potentially spend league resources on bringing, you know, outside speakers or bringing in continuing education types of opportunities. That's the target. The target's going to just kind of make up changes as clubs identify what they are and how they go about their, and try to, as you say, crack on.
What, John? I'll take a step further real quick there, though, and that's not necessarily the 80% of the clubs, but maybe the 30 to 50 that are the most in need of support and that help to guide along the way, that don't have the history of the years of how they've been run, to kind of continue to move forward. So that's that's a good point.
Let's look forward then rather than down. We had some new faces at the AGM. We had some new clubs joining. We have some new clubs potentially joining. What can you say about those clubs that are already signed on the dotted line, and what they bring to the league as a whole?
I think some of the, right off the bat, I think it's a fresh perspective, and they're bringing what they've either, you know, for those clubs that have been around and have played in some league or other, coming to the Midwest Premier League. I think they bring with it a kind of eyes wide open, fresh set of, you know, we hear that in construction a lot, fresh set of eyes. But they do bring it to kind of say, hey, here's what this is why I'm, you know, they can kind of look back and say, hey, why did I join this league? Here's why. Did it meet my expectations? And what else do I want from my league to do for me? But they're bringing a different level of expectations and experiences. I think that's always helpful. And I think we've added some clubs in some areas that help kind of create some density for some, you know, more local rivalries or local matches. So I think even we've actually been able to reduce or maintain or, you know, keep lower travel costs as a league, just through the way the organic process worked of expansion or, you know, addition. I'm really excited to see what we've had some announcements there on the South piece, to see what that goes in 23 and, you know, this year and 23, 24, see how that goes beyond. We've got some really good people down there, and that's exciting to see what they're going to grow that part of the game.
What, if anything, can the league do to help the growth in those currently underserved areas?
Well, let me speak to that, Nick, because Andy also this past year has been on the expansion committee, and Ben Rohde from Livonia as a board member also works. He kind of works on the east. I work on the west, and in the south, we've kind of all talked to our guys down there. All we can do is offer what we are, right? I've had talks with other clubs down there. I've had talks with other clubs in southern Iowa. I've had talks with a number of people. We tell them what we are and how we do things, and we let them come to us. I think with having 3 clubs go, even a small conference this year, those 3 understand that, hey, this is ideal, but it's better than nothing, and we believe West Premier League offers as it relates to other options. The best marketing there is, I believe, in that area is when those 3 teams play against each other and against other people, other clubs in other towns, and they work to recruit. Like, it's hard to recruit in an area where there's no team. So to get 3, you know, even if we doubled it in a year with the right people, again, not poaching, not chasing anybody. Here's what we are. If you want to call, want to give you a little backstory what we're about. We've spent time doing that and having conversations. Ultimately, the challenge we have with expansion deadlines is you have a deadline, and once everybody waits till the deadline, and once you announce those team a week or 2 later, then everybody goes, "Oh, if I'd have known they were going, I would have come." And then the deadline's passed, and here we go. So, you know, I'm excited for those 3 clubs, and I think they're going to do a good job of truthfully recruiting clubs around them that they think are good people, like-minded, and I think they're going to be our best advocates for growth in the South.
Just spitballing. I might even edit this out, I don't know. But that's not the first time you've mentioned the issue with the deadline. How realistic, viable is it to have, I don't know, a November the 1st deadline with entry fees of X, and then a December 31st deadline of entry fees of Y? Basically a discount for early admission.
That's for sure. That's
well,
something. Go ahead, John.
Unless I'm off the expansion committee by next week, that's absolutely something that we'll discuss. I think we have to have instead of a hard deadline, I think we have to look at having a soft deadline. there's so much fluidity to the sport at this level that I think that's a great idea to incentivize. I mean, and for anybody listening, applications, although we don't have our documents put together 23 yet, I mean, we'll talk to anybody that wants to talk about next now. We don't have to wait. The sooner we get people in, the sooner it allows us to plan.
Right.
And you heard, I think, at the meeting, there's clubs that want the schedule done a month ago. Well, there's venues that haven't returned phone calls yet, other than, yes, we'd love to have you back, but we can't give you any dates yet until the end of the spring. So they're like, we want to get everything done as early as possible, but at the same time, we're not ready to do things until sort of the last minute level. So it's very, we just have to navigate it very fully to try to accommodate whatever.
Yeah. Thank you for humoring me with my radical idea. If the South Conference, just to keep beating this around. So we've got, forgive me, my mind is addled, but I know we've got Columbia. We've got 2 others, right?
Yes.
Who are they? Yeah. No, yes doesn't help me in this. This is a conversation, Andy. I need information.
We have Ajax St. Louis and Santa Fe Wanderers.
Okay, Santa Fe,
right?
yeah. Kind of
All right. The west side. So we basically have both, east and west boundary of the state and center of the state covered. We're literally everywhere in Missouri.
Mm-hmm. Anywhere that matters. Yeah. All right. So, with that in mind, and also with like the existing geographical areas that we've got, what's a nice radius for you guys when you're thinking about expansion? Obviously, if someone came from Las Vegas, good luck persuading us. But if you can get 17 teams, then okay, we'll have a chat. But realistically, not how far from Chicago, but how far do you expect clubs to travel?
I guess from an expectation point, less than 5 is right off. That's the first, less than 5 hours, right? And I think really target 3 to 4 max for your long trip of the year. That to me allows you to be somewhat successful in terms of it's harder than hell to get the players to some of them who want to go and sit on the bench for 85 minutes, may get in, may not get in, and be a part of that on a Saturday. It's a different mindset than maybe, and that's evolving too to pick on. We talked about the player pool, player pathway earlier in the conversation. That may be part of it too, where it is a different mindset and you're trying to adapt to how you recruit players, not just, supporters and ardent fans and whatever. But I think if you keep the travel relatively minimal like that, we have pockets, but you also want to have a diverse enough club mix to where you're not playing the same 3 clubs routinely. I know that we talked about the South. No, it's not perfect, but I do think we've got some very good folks down in those 3 clubs we talked about, very interested in growing the game, being part of it, doing it, I think, the right way, and we'll kind of collaborate with anybody. I think, to kind of elaborate a little bit on what we can do to help them out is continue to be transparent. And this league isn't for everybody, but we'll talk to anybody to see if there's a good fit. If there's a good fit and it makes sense, let's go. It's awesome.
Interesting. I think there's a show on YouTube called League of Amateurs. I don't know if you've seen it. Basically, where they follow around English non-league teams.
Yes.
I'm just going to keep on talking, even though you've seen it, because just one thing that struck in my mind there was when they were featuring the second team that they're no longer featured because for reasons, they were complaining about they had a long away match. And I googled it because I'm not familiar with that part of England. It was an hour and 15 minutes for them.
Yeah, 60 miles.
That was their long away match.
Yeah, they bitched it, which it puts everything in perspective. And what we're trying to keep it hour and 15 would be like your local right. I mean that's a derby.
First, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Our first year old boys, our closest trip was 4 hours.
Mm-hmm.
That sucked.
Yeah.
As one of the guys driving the vans, that sucked. But I mean, and it's all about it's finding those clubs that do exist or that are interested, that are hungry and kind of maybe I'll say crazy enough to want to see this happen in their community, or they've got a team and they want to keep guys playing. They've aged out of the youth program and they're looking for just a way to compete in the summer, stay sharp for going to college, or they may start working and they hate their 9 to 5 and they just want an outlet, regardless. And that's the same thing, the bunch of amateurs thing you were talking about as well. Some of those guys just needed that outlet to get out. And you talk about, hey, we had 6 guys at training. Like, holy hell, I can relate to that. But yeah, it is putting in perspective as far as what a true trip, traveling to matches. That's the biggest component. Is there enough of a density, or enough of a cluster of clubs that we can effectively help provide some league support to?
It's an ongoing issue. It's always going to be an issue with American
answer.
soccer.
Your question was very simple, Nick, and I just man.
This is the peril, the risk you take when you take you two on a podcast is like, there's very little point in me being here.
The outer geographic boundaries of the maximum that I think we're even talking about is Region 2 of USASA. It's 13 or 14 states, and we haven't publicly shared it because it's really just John sitting down and putting lines on a map. But we broke down sort of our region, not necessarily into states, of course, but into, I think we had 5 or 6 different like regions within our Region 2, and within each of those there was
it's
like
population density rather than state lines, right?
Right. So there was like 4, either a couple large cities and a couple medium-sized cities. There was like 4 metropolises that could support a club for sure. In each one of them, maximum travel was 4 hours. Now we don't have clubs in all the towns and all. That's why I actually called it the 2030 plan, because I thought it was something to aim at in 10 years as a guide of, okay, if we fill in, then we will, this kind of thing. It's something we as a board talked about maybe later, even in the summer. And it wasn't like, let's adopt this. It was just, to your point, Nick, there's so many ways you could, like, what are your outer boundaries? What's your travel restriction? And you have to kind of lay some of those out. We did, and it's kind of a tool, a guide. It's not necessarily, this is our goal, this is where we're headed. It is, if we grow, this is how it could, and be mindful of travel and those kinds of things.
I guess, and someone's always got to be on the periphery, right? It doesn't matter where you, if you draw a boundary, someone's going to be closer to the boundary than other people. It's just the luck of the draw. Yeah, and maybe the Mississippi Premier League is a better fit to someone than Okay. Speaking of travel, one of the hot topics from the fan side of things was the road pass.
Yes.
So for people who are uninitiated, the Midwest Premier League did a thing whereby I, as a fan of DeKalb, could have to wrap the cat out of the bag at last. I could buy a road pass for, I think it was $50, but the quantum doesn't really matter, and that guaranteed me entry to any match that DeKalb were playing on the roads that season, whether it was in Chicago, whether it was in Rockford, whether it was in Dubuque, Iowa. I understand that take up was varied, shall we say?
Yeah, as far as the success, yeah, it was, and I think you see those that are building a really be rabid or supporter based kind of culture. They got it, and they did really well with it. DeKalb was one that did really well with it. I think there's a lot of excitement around that. There were some questions about that from one of our Michigan clubs leading up to the AGM, and so to me, there are some logistics and particulars you got to work to on the back end side where no one wants to get involved and do it, but it is one of the most unique things that I think we've seen at this level of soccer, or any level of soccer, maybe sport. Not to be all caught up in our shit, but and quite honestly, it's a pretty neat idea. And again, it promotes that clubs partnering together to what's for the good of the game. Well, I've heard you guys say butts and seats. Almost every podcast, that phrase comes up almost every time, or anytime we share a document between the three of us and just some, random text conversation. It's always going back to getting people there at the match, watching, and whether it's they're there for soccer or they're there to be entertained by whatever else is going around them. As you guys talked with the bananas guy, that is part of it. Here is allowing our away to get that away supporter, and Nick, you probably can speak to it much more intelligently than John and I can from a true culture perspective. Yeah, I know. But going to the away game, the away day is you bond with your fellow supporters. It's an incredible experience that we're trying to, I don't say replicate, but we're trying to create one of our own. And there are folks who've done a hell of a job pushing that out, getting their supporters to come be part of it, tailgate, do whatever. That's awesome to see. Hopefully we start seeing there's a lot to do at this level of soccer, and most folks are spread really thin. They don't have a huge army of people to help. Those are some things I hope they really pay attention to and get people on board to help.
I'll add to that too. we included it in our lifetime membership. We included the road pass in our lifetime membership. We want our those people that invest heavily into the club to be able to come on the road with us. And from a staff perspective, you guys are both involved with running a club. Away days is when you get to go actually watch as a staff. I mean, those are pretty special days. And we did, it was $20, Nick. I mean, it was very affordable for a season of fun, but you can only do those things when the clubs are all willing to accept, hey, when John shows up with his road pass, we're going to let him, and by bringing it up at the meeting, everybody accepted that. And we'll see, it was a good sort of a fundraiser for the league. And from a financial standpoint, it paid for a good chunk of the AGM, quite honestly. So you can allocate money however you want, but it was something very unique, as you said, Andy.
So
What's that?
Did the clubs lose out? Did the clubs lose out financially for accepting our road passes? Then, like, if you and I were going to Dubuque anyway, that's $10 that Cliff could have had. But if we've got the road pass, he's not getting any of that, and you're saying that's going straight to the league, or did the club compensated?
No, all the money went to the league. I mean, ultimately, the league money is the club's money. Yes, that was part of the discussion a year ago. Nick, actually, the clubs were afraid, well, I'm going to miss out on all the travel. Well, if you looked at the sales last year, I think you add everybody up in the West, they didn't sell as many as our club. So really, it was I mean, literally, right, Andy? It was like 1 or 2 or 3 per club, and then there was a couple boomers.
Yeah.
On the other side, Lansing and Detroit City, their reserve team, those were the 2 highest. For the most part, unless it was that big group coming, it didn't really impact anybody too bad financially. Again, it's a good faith effort. We're going to do something unique. And hey, if I can get 40 people from their club to show up and have an atmosphere because they have a road pass, great. If they had to show up and pay $10, they just might not show up at all. So there's always some give and take.
Right.
No, absolutely. Nothing's perfect, right? I would just generally thought it occurred to me that Cliff wasn't getting a kickback, but I'm more than happy with that, so it's okay. Screw him. If you're listening, Cliff, I don't mean that. I don't mean that. I would love to have you back, just because picking on Rockford just isn't the same. It really isn't. And yeah, if you could get a club, then we can pick on you. That'd be super. John, so given this platform, in fact, no, Andy, given this platform, ask John a question that you haven't asked him, or if you have asked him, but you want to repeat in public.
Oh,
not about the rash, though. Not about...
I should have prepared better for that one, Nick. I knew you were going to lob that over to me. So I guess on the membership side of things, John, we've talked about memberships ad nauseum. Like, we talk about that all the time. What do you think? It's not necessarily universal, but do you think it works? Do you think it works for clubs at this league, at this level, to sell a version of a quote unquote membership?
Short answer, yes. Long answer is a lob back to you, Andy. What sports teams in the world don't sell some type of season ticket package? Whether you call it a membership, you call it I buy season tickets to Chicago Fire for 4 teams. I'm a season ticket holder. We call it a membership because we want them to feel like members, like they're part of the club. So we throw, periodic things that we can get their input on, or if there's a members only event or something we can do to elevate them as a supporter, great. I mean, I think it doesn't hurt, right? It gives people, again, an opportunity to speak up. We don't call our member clubs at the league, we don't call them customers, we call them member clubs because I don't know, I think it's just a more welcoming mindset to have with people that, I mean, I think it's kind of silly.
You're part of us. Yeah. No, I agree. That's obviously, we've again talked about that a lot. We've seen that work for a variety of clubs. I'm a sucker, and I like them all.
And I'll ask you this, Andy, and maybe you don't know the answer, but from a revenue standpoint, I like to get nerdy with numbers. What do I think percentages of membership income makes up a big part of a club's budget at this level? I don't think it is. I think it's very low. Do you think there's any clubs? I can think of a few that it may be bigger, but most clubs that sell memberships, it's probably very low anyway, right?
Right. It is, but I think what it does is it if done right, it creates that connection with the club forever. I bought several lifetime memberships, at least a few that clubs offer them. For me, I want that club to succeed no matter what. No matter if my club does well or not, not just wins and losses. I mean, just being around, being relevant. Me, having the opportunity to buy a shirt or a scarf, to fill my house with crap, like we talked about earlier, Nick, before we went recording, just because I know at the end of the day, because I've run a club and continue to run a club that Nick, you may or may not realize we still play. I know how much it matters.
Size club, though. I'm talking about Midwest club. Come on board, Andy, then we can destroy you.
Yeah, real club. Got it. We're coming up there. It moves the needle so much more. You sell a scarf or you sell a membership, and whether you're continually replenishing someone's quote unquote scarf inventory year after year, they're going to wear that around. I've worn my DeKalb County scarf out and about traveling to, for work. I work in a place that's cold as hell. Oftentimes, not Indianapolis. I travel a lot and I need a scarf, and I'm glad I have the DKCU scarf. So it's one of those things. I think you connect by providing the updates. Lansing Common does a great job. I want to give them a shout out. They do a phenomenal job of ensuring that, hey, if you buy a membership package at a certain level or whatever, you participate in their board meetings. You participate in voting on kits or whatever, scarves, all that stuff. You just want that club to succeed that much more. I may never get to a match at Lansing Common because I run a club and all this other shit, and they're in Michigan. I'm not. But I want them to continue to grow and do whatever. Same, hell, even with Rockford. Maybe it's out of sympathy, but I mean, I'm just kidding. But I want all of our clubs in our league to do well, obviously. But the ones you resonate with and they offer that membership piece, to me, it's a no-brainer to support it, and just it means so much more than buying an MLS jersey. Quite frankly, who gives a shit about that? Mm-hmm. Like, let's buy a $30 scarf for one of these clubs. Just connects.
Devil's advocate, preaching to the choir. But take your role as commissioner out of it. You're just a soccer fan, right?
Yeah. What
is the benefit to DeKalb or Lansing or Rockford or whoever of you walking around your job site in our scarf? If it's not in DeKalb, if you're walking around Tucson, Arizona in a scarf?
Well, hopefully it's the right season to do that in Tucson. But I get what you're saying. No, it's a couple things. I think it's a way. It's a nerdy side of me. It's a way to connect with soccer people who you never will ever cross paths with. I remember in an airport one time I was wearing a St. Pauli t-shirt, and I was in Sacramento or no reason for anyone to know who the hell I was or what the hell I was doing, but it started instantly a 10-minute conversation with a stranger. Things like that. Soccer is such a universal sport, and it is so compelling to connect. Either hatred. I had a guy last night. I've worked with in the past as a supplier texted me about. He's an AC Milan fan, so obviously Liverpool and Inter Milan are playing. He, in Champions League, he texted me about that. Soccer connected us. Just something as random as that, right? So having a DKCU scarf in BFE Arizona is an opportunity for someone to connect, ask a question, and talk about soccer. And then from there, who knows what happens? They may find themselves out in the suburbs of Chicago one day in the summer, and being a fan of this level of soccer, to go to the games, whether tickets are free or they cost $5 or whatever the hell, $10, it doesn't matter. It's just a absolute great way to be a part of something that's really, I don't know, pretty impressive that people volunteer to do this shit, and they put their heart and soul into it. And it's to be able to help somebody by buying a membership or buying a scarf or going to a match. That's an incredible feeling. It's awesome.
I tell you what, Andy, I have the same thoughts every time I leave the house. I legitimately ask myself, should I throw on something with the logo? Because I know I'm in town and it's more direct than what you're talking about, but man, am I going to Target, or am I going to Walmart, or am I going to wherever where somebody might see that logo and go, hey, way to go. I like that club, or, hey, what's that about? Or,
Yep.
I have a hard time leaving the house without wearing something I'm wearing a No Pollo, No Party shirt right now.
It's been noticed, John. It's been noticed.
So but it's like,
no, it's same. I do this.
If you owned a tree trimming service, you would wear something with tree trimming service on it everywhere you go. So it's really the same kind of thing.
Right.
Even if you're in Tucson, Arizona, because it's your brand.
That's right. I almost always have an old boys hat on when I go to a brewery or coffee shop or anywhere. If I'm out and about, I wear it. Hell, I coach a youth club. all I wear is my old boy shit. That's all I wear.
I'd wear a hat a lot with that haircut as well. So
Glad this is audio.
I know. I'm in no position to throw stones about haircuts. Like, all right, cool. That was a nice long segment. I'm going to return the favor though. I can't remember who asked the question. John, you asked it of Andy, didn't you? No, Andy asked it of John. Whoever, yeah. Then John asked it of Andy. No, Andy asked it of John. There you go. Whoever asked the question,
Andy,
answer one.
I'm going to ask you, and you and I have talked about this, but I haven't asked you this directly. So compare 2021 to 2022. You were the commissioner last year. You are the commissioner this year, whether you like it or not. I'd like to understand. We've talked about dick bags. Aside from that, and disciplinary, anything, rules, whatever, and maybe that was your answer. But what did we experience in 21 that you hope and think will be better in 22? And kind of like compare the past to the future a little bit.
Gotcha. So what I'm hoping will be better is the dick baggery of some of the people involved, right? But I mean, quite honestly, we had a couple issues, and you don't think you're going to have those because we're playing soccer, but they were relatively minor in number and frequency. What I'm hoping is what I'm hoping for something, I guess, for 22 is, our returning champion in the East is they do a programming shift in the club. They made some tough decisions and shifted down to a U19 instead of U23 club. I respect that it works well for them and the league they're part of now. So we're going to crown a new champion in the East. I'm curious to see who challenges our returning champion runner-up in the West, and I'm really excited to see who moves up and who moves down on the table. We've got a really interesting format in the West, I think, in the East, where everyone's playing everybody. It's not a perfectly balanced schedule like we're accustomed to if we're Euro snobs with the way the soccer's done over there, but I do think that, to me, the fact that we get to see, we did a really neat thing in how we inverted the schedule in the West. Not to get too into the weeds, everyone's going to see how everybody else does match day differently. In the longer you're in the league, the more experience and exposure you're going to get and get ideas. Again, it goes back to everybody kind of helping out and being collaborative. There are going to be some things that were really, really good. There are going to be some things that suck, and we're just going to how do we identify those and work together to address them, or does a club take them and say we don't want to be like that club? That may happen, but the results in the table, I'm excited. You guys have made a lot of DeKalb has made a lot of off-season noise, which is exciting. Specifically, just to see, I followed the club when we played you guys in the very first competition you guys ever had. So we've kind of been linked from inception. I'm really excited to see how that translates and where you guys slot in the table. I think it's going to be really exciting. I'm excited to see, if Rockford for year 2, what they do. That's, to me, it's exciting. Edgewater Castle had a pretty solid season in 21. Can they replicate that, or can they look to edge out an Adria or Babs? Can Babs maintain their dominance? At some point, you'd think the numbers are against them, but hell, someone's got to beat them. I'm sure you guys are sick of that. And on the East, it's Lansing had such a great year 1. West Michigan had a really solid year 1. Inter Detroit looks like they're busy in the season reloading. Livonia City's made some significant changes. We got a host of other new clubs that just we don't know enough about from how they compete against Midwest Premier League clubs, but they fit our mantra of growing, club-based soccer. It's good. Yeah. I rambled like a son of a bitch there, John, but you get the point. I'm excited about watching soccer.
Nerd. All right, cool. Gentlemen, thank you. Conscious of your time, Andy, I know you've got a hard stop-ish.
It's just work, Nick. It's just work.
I know it's just paper, as Ante would say. Anybody got anything they want to say that we haven't touched on just yet before we wrap it all up?
I would like to, on the record, thank Andy for his league as an independent. I think it's imperative that we have somebody coming from sort of the outside and observing without a horse in the race to provide that fresh perspective, because as member clubs making decisions, we can all get lost in what's best for our club, which is important, but Andy can provide that 10,000 foot view of what's best for the organization. I want to thank you for your service, Andy, and I look forward to hopefully not seeing you on any disciplinary things or anything this year. And I think we all will benefit from sort of bringing you back as the overseer of the leagues and scheduling all that. I think everybody's going to be stronger because you are maintaining your role, and so thank you on behalf of all of us.
I appreciate that. It's my parting shot there. I appreciate the board's willingness to listen to me rant and rave. Was once monthly, and then we got to twice a month there for the past 4 or 5 months. And there were some times I was pretty heated. So I'm glad you guys aren't. No one's too soft-skinned or thin-skinned. It works out. I mean, we're passionate about what we're doing. Everybody's passionate about their club and about the league in general, and that's sometimes that carries over in some really heated conversation. But it's all, again, at the end of the day, it is soccer. We're able to kind of recognize that we've had pretty good year. 22 is going to be, I think, a hell of a lot of fun, and definitely looking forward to the next AGM in person. To me, that's the way to go. It is absolutely incredible to do that type of thing where you sit down and talk. John, to your point, having an opportunity to do something socially afterwards, or where we can just kind of let loose a little bit, and it's not get through the agenda. It's more of a here those clubs that are doing similar things but differently can have that more poignant conversation about, okay, here's how we approached this brewery, for example, or this sponsor. No, it's that'll be exciting, fun to be a part of. I take a hell of a lot back with me. Don't necessarily implement it all, but I take a hell of a lot back with me to Old Boys, and we definitely need that as we're looking ahead to 22 and beyond here in Indy.
Well, good luck with all of it. I'd just like to echo what John said. I think I would dispute that it is imperative that we have an independent overseer, but I think we are very lucky to have one. I think it's a position that a lot of leagues would benefit from having. But, people that are willing to put in the legwork and the time and the commitment without any skin in the game are few and far between. So God bless you for all you do, Andrew. Long may it continue, because we're definitely, same as with John, we're the people that I know that care about soccer in this country are doing great things very quietly, sometimes very slowly because of the nature of politics. But we are better to have you people involved than just to have certain other people on Twitter just shouting about ProRail. So hurrah for all of us. Thank you, gentlemen. We will speak at some point, I'm sure. John, I hope I don't speak to you for at least 6 hours.
Nick,
that'd be great.
Again,
Andy,
season 2 is over. Sad day. Season 2. Thank you for all. Let me thank you. Nobody knows you do all the recording, all the schedule. Yes, let me wax on here for a second. So for those of you that don't know, Nick does all the scheduling with our guests. He often does all the research, which isn't much, but he does some. He does all the editing. He does all the posting. He does all the sharing. He does everything. He literally says, John, we have a podcast, and it's with this person. And then he sends me a dial-up link, just like he sends the guests. And I jump on, and I ramble. But Nick does everything behind the scenes. So thank you for making Build It possible. We hope we've inspired 2 or 3 people, maybe more. But we thank you all, and thank you, Nick, for the pod.
Sure. Not to spoil it, but at the start of this, you said you're looking forward to a break from all the work that goes into making this podcast. So screw you when you're 1 hour of sitting on the sofa. All right, gentlemen, thank you very much. The game is about to start. If you all want to go and catch it on whatever service you watch it on. I don't have a skin in the game, but I hope Liverpool lose just because it's funny. Love you all.
Thank you.
Good luck with soccer. Support local, and we'll see you all next season.
Thank you.
Now the time has come for leaving. Fear now we shall return. We were so glad we could make it, but so sad we gotta run. Well, it might be a long time till we raise another glass. You can rest assured that next time we'll have ourselves a laugh.